Gaffney is a John McCain supporter and the president of the Center for Security Policy. Frank, I want to read a statement by Senator Obama today. Quote, "Now is the time for action, not just words. It is past time for the Russian government to immediately sign and implement a ceasefire. Russia must halt its violation of Georgian airspace and withdraw its ground forces from Georgia with international monitors to verify that these obligations are met." Any problem, Frank, there with that statement?
No, look, I think that's fine. It sounds more like the kind of thing that I believe we've just been treated to, which is, on the one hand, condemning the Bush administration, condemning the president himself for a policy that is long on talk, on sort of wishful thinking, rather than a policy that is rooted in the reality. It's not the United States inattention that has caused Vladimir Putin to rebuild Russia and to make it once again an aggressive power, a danger to its neighbors, and I think to a great many others beyond, as it is arming the Chinese, the Venezuelans, the Iranians, the Syrians, and so on. This is the kind of reality that I think Senator McCain has a better handle on than Senator Obama, despite his protest. Senator Obama's program at the moment sounds a lot more like another 4 years of George Bush's present foreign policy than it does John McCain's
program. What sort of consequences, when John McCain talks about consequences, spell it out. What should the consequences be for Russia?
Yeah, I like John McCain. I've liked him for a long time. I'm not on his campaign staff, nor do I speak for him. I think he has rightly said one of the costs, and there ought to be a number of costs to Russia for engaging in this kind of behavior, is we stop treating them as though they are a part of the civilized community of nations that are leading pro-Western industrial states. You take them out of the G8. They shouldn't have been in there in the first place. I think that we ought to stop the kinds of consultations that we've been doing at NATO with them. It seems to me that Americans ought to be encouraged not to invest in the various Russian state-owned enterprises, which are increasingly being used as engines for this kind of behavior. These are the sorts of steps that I think would have an effect on the Russians and make it clear that the behavior that they are engaged in today and that they have in mind for Crimea and Ukraine next, and quite possibly for a lot of other places, including Eastern Europe, is not in the cards.
It might have an effect, but the effect also might be to cause us problems as far as North Korea and Iran. And the question is, where do you draw the line between punishing Russia appropriately and putting our relationship with them on those crucial issues in jeopardy?
Well, I'm of the view that things are not going perfectly with either North Korea or Iran. So the kind of help the Russians are giving us, if this is what we're trying to encourage by looking the other way on the rape of Georgia, then I'd say forget about it. North Korea is continuing to have its nuclear weapons and is going to sell it to other people. And I have to tell you, Iran is continuing to build nuclear weapons with Russian help. This is not the kind of cooperative relationship that I think we should be promoting.
Right, but if you're calling it a rape, that's a pretty loaded word, and so that would suggest that just having international monitors or whatever, that's not enough, that the United States should take far more concrete action. And I guess I'm wondering, Vice President Cheney spoke specifically about economic sanctions on Russia. Do you think that's a wise idea?
Look, I'm describing some steps that could be taken far faster than economic sanctions on Russia. I think if the American people were to dump the stocks that they are holding in their mutual funds in companies like Gazprom, it would send a very powerful signal to the Russians that this is not a game that's going to be allowed to go on as they intend to play it. But let me just say, I personally, and I'm not speaking for the McCain campaign, certainly not for the Bush administration, would be signaling our strong support for the people of Georgia by enabling them to not only rebuild their country with our help, but to rearm their country. And if that entails having American trainers, if that entails having American forces there to help them do it, I would do it. I think that's the sort of signal we need to send to the Russians at this time.
Frank Gaffney, who supports John McCain but is not with the McCain campaign, thank you very much.